Welcome to the Barry Podcast, an unofficial show covering the HBO hit series Barry. I am one of your hosts. You may know me as Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, master of the Lil Jon reference. Yeah! I'm here with my co-host Magnum Mills. We're going to talk about the 12th episode of Barry, Season 2, Episode 4, titled What?
Okay. I am Magnum Mills, and I understood that reference. Thank you for checking out the Barry Podcast. Find us wherever you get your pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all the good ones. Find us on social media at Barry Podcast. You can find us on YouTube by searching for Barry Podcast, or just go to joeblowfootballshow.com. Brings you right to our YouTube channel. If you could, please take like 7 seconds to like, comment, rate, follow, subscribe. If you want to do them all, you're awesome. But if you even just do one, it helps us out a lot because it helps other people find the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And when we cover new episodes of Barry, we spoil everything from all previous episodes. However, during these rewatch episodes, we will not be spoiling any future events or episodes of Barry. At the conclusion of this episode discussion, we will have a spoiler section. But don't you worry, because we'll give you a heads up when we get there, all right? So you'll have an option. You'll know, all right, we're here. Do I bail or do I stay? Choice is yours. Mills, hit us with these episode deets, starting now.
Will I bail or will I stay? It's like describing the end of every Tinder date I've ever had. This is Season 2, Episode 4. What? Originally aired Sunday, April 21st, 2019, with an estimated 1.94 million viewers in the United States tuning in live. Barry's still enjoying the nice lead-in from Game of Thrones here. Directed by Liza Johnson. This is the first episode of Barry that she directed. Written by Duffy Bourdreau. This is his second written by credit on Barry. The short plot synopsis is: Barry's patience is put to the test when a figure from Sally's past arrives in LA. Jean gets a pleasant surprise and encourages Barry to believe that change is possible.
And before we get into our recap discussion of this episode, we're each going to give you our overall thoughts. Remember, no spoilers for anything past what?
Okay.
Kind of right in the same zone as the last one, right? I thought this was a really good episode. I like how they picked it up. I enjoyed the development of Sam here. I thought this was well played throughout this episode, and I like this rage inside Barry. We haven't really gotten 2 back-to-back episodes filled with rage. We've gotten some rage moments out of Barry. So those were 2 real big takeaways for me. And yeah, I thought this was good, man. I like how this one ends too. I think we're starting to kind of get a cadence here, and this season's starting to pick up a little bit.
I agree with all that. It does feel like almost that 1 and 2 of Season 2, the first 2 episodes, felt like 2 episodes that can almost been paired together. And I think you can say the same thing about 3 and 4 here, right down to the way when 3 ends with the twitch on Barry's face, and then 4 begins here with the close-up on the eyes. You think you're going to zoom out and be like right there at the previous scene, but you find out you did skip ahead just a little bit to when they're at dinner, and then that definitely throws you for a loop when you're like, why are they at dinner with Sam? Okay. I think it did a good job of keeping you knocked off your balance a little bit. You know, Barry, sometimes, I don't want to call it predictable, but you can get an idea sometimes about how things are going to go. And then every once in a while, that's their strength. They suck you in. They just do the rope it open, then bam, they hit you with that twist you didn't see coming. So I definitely enjoyed this one. But like you said, I think it's pretty close to being, right on the exact same level as the last one.
Okay. Mills, you want to start breaking down this episode or
What? Yeah.
It looks like we're going to open the episode right where we left off, but instead we see Barry and Sally sitting having a meal with Sam. He actually seems nice enough, and they make small talk. He even offers to pay for their meal. Sam brings up Sally's scene in the upcoming play. Sally tries to dodge the subject. Barry says, don't worry about it, but Sam wants to see it. He tells him he'll be in the area for work. He's supposed to be going to do something in San Diego for work or something, and he'll be around until Sunday. First initial impressions on Sam, Jamie G. First thoughts.
Yeah, look, he's got kind of this, I don't know if it's Midwestern, a little bit of Southern, like a little draw to him here. He seems very calm, very collected, very cool. It just cracks me up because if you've ever been where in Barry's seat and this jackass former ex who is a piece of shit and you got to play nice, and then he calls you by the wrong name, it takes everything you have not to just rip him open here. I give Barry credit for sitting and taking it, but I thought he played his part, and they did just enough to kind of create, well, what the hell's he really here for?
Yeah, just enough to put a little, just sow the seed of doubt in your mind to the point like maybe he really isn't that bad or whatever. A great editing here. I don't remember off the top of my head who the editor was here, but I like the choice of when like Sam like, he calls Barry Bob, and Barry's like, no, my name isn't. They cut to the Barry title card, and then at the end you go out on what is the final thing. Like you get the episode title, the absolute last thing before you smash cut to the credits. So I thought this was a very well edited episode. I really like it, when Sally and Barry are both talking over each other because they're both kind of nervous. Sally because this is her abusive ex, and Barry because he's trying not to kill this guy. And that's actually kind of hard to pull off, to have two people talking at once. So I thought that they really pulled that off well. It's not something easy to do. Again, shout out the direction here. And what do you think, man? Just based on this episode, do you think that he was really like had business in San Diego and just happened to stop by? Or do you think he made the trip out to LA explicitly to see Sally?
My gut was going explicitly to see Sally even early on here, because it was just all too big of a coinky dink. She kind of has that call back home, and now all of a sudden this guy's showing up. It just seemed like a coinky dink, right? And dude, I will say they're back and forth where she's like, well, it's not really a play, and he's like, no, you literally wrote it. We're perform it in front of people. That was so well done. I wonder how many times it took them to, like, how many shots they took of that to get that right. But man, that worked well.
Yeah, I feel like there would be quite a few takes on that one, and it looks like they did it pretty much as just not quite a oneer, but they weren't a lot of cutting, so they definitely had to nail that one. Again, I thought everyone in the scene did a very good job. It's even Sam, shout out the act. You just look at that guy and you're like, yeah, he's pretty douchey. I wanted to call him like Dime Store Lebowski. He tries to pull off the dude, but he can't actually do it because he's, Dime Store douchebag, not Dime Store dude, but
Yeah.
whatever. I watched Lebowski recently. Next, we see that Barry's back in the desert training Hank's guys, and Hank has an entirely new outfit. This time, they're working on hand-to-hand combat, not their rifle skills. Hank talks about things being stressful at the stash house, and Barry is also stressed, and we see that when he snaps at one of Hank's guys. Back at the acting class, everyone is working on their scenes, and Barry is struggling, and he asks Sally why she agreed to go to dinner with Sam. Sally starts to break down, and she leaves the main room, and Barry follows her into the dressing room. There, Sally starts sobbing, and she explains to Barry that her story is a lie. Sure, she eventually left Sam, but she never actually confronted him. Barry reassures her that all that matters is that she left him, and she can be whoever she wants to be. After all, he's Barry Block, and he's an actor.
He would know, right? And I think it's so funny because a lot of times Sally's trying to put herself in his shoes, like, no one knows more than me. But I actually think Barry can say that a little bit when trying to help her. He doesn't, but I think he could. I think it actually works more for him than it does with Sally trying to tell him that.
And let's be honest here. This is probably the first time that someone had an emotional situation and Barry had the correct response. He's always famously been clueless in this, and you have to figure just basically because Barry has been through this exact same thing, right? Where he's trying to like tell a lie to himself about his past or his present or whatever, and you keep telling it to yourself enough that you believe it. And Sally was finally forced to confront this when Sam actually showed up. You get the idea if he hadn't shown up, she probably wouldn't be going through all this. She still would have been fine. It's seeing him again, making her really kind of confront that idea that like, oh shit, things really didn't go down the way that I wish they had. And Barry, I think definitely feels the same way. Again, as we'll find out later in the episode about the whole response to the Albert situation and everything.
Yes, totally agree.
It's kind of like pick a quote from this scene. There are so many, but shout out Jermaine. Like, I don't know if your father was really abducted and replaced by aliens, but
your story is that your father was abducted and replaced by aliens?
That's what happened.
I'm having a little trouble with that.
You're having a little trouble with that? What do you think? I've had that trouble my entire life dealing with that. All right?
Really?
He seems to believe it. I agree with Antonio that I think it is more powerful if you vomit. And Hank, tell us why life at the Stash House has been super tense, man.
Life at Stash House has been super tense, man. As you know, my favorite flavor of all ice creams is Rocky Road. Yesterday, I go to soft serve machine, and Cristobal has had my flavor replaced with cookie dough, which is the favorite flavor of guess who? You know how people start to look like our dogs? Well, Esther is sporting very Cristobal-esque haircut.
Dude, did you have Hank as pinned as a Rocky Road guy? Or did you have him as something else? I didn't have him as a Rocky Road.
Mint chocolate chip. I don't know why. Or either that or vanilla. It's got like all flavors, Barry. This way you can put whatever on it.
Yeah. I didn't have him as a Rocky Road guy, but I'm not mad at him.
What do you think, man? Is Star Wars a rad movie? Like, what's a rad movie? I mean, that's just so specific, right? That's like 1996. Like, no one really said. I think after like the Ninja Turtles cartoon ended, like, who said rad after that?
It might have hung around with like the West Coast Surfer Bros for a minute, but I don't know that it really in 2000 and whenever the show is taking place. I don't think it was a popular vernacular at that point. But hey, man, Barry's never claimed to be cool. He's a weird one.
No, he definitely. I mean, he's got a Metallica poster in there. He'd probably get along well with Beavis and Butthead. So I'd like to see Hater on Beavis and Butthead. And just shout out again, if you're watching on YouTube, you look behind Jamie G and you see NoHo Hank's outfit here. The all white. Is that a scarf or I know that's not even just a scarf. There's a more particular name for that kind of scarf, but he's got the straw hat, the sunglasses with the all white sunblock nose. Just absolutely. I mean,
he is protected against the sun here, man. I mean, that is.
He looks like the villain in a Scooby-Doo cartoon or something. I don't even know what else. And shout out the translator. They brought him back. Like, they came back to the desert. They all like, does he just not have another job or something? Like, he tries to start translating, and the one dude grabs him like, dude, we all speak English. I love that running gag. Also love the running gag from Archer. If you ever watched Archer, that he has tinnitus and that like gunfire near your ears is bad. So when Barry fires the gun near that dude's head, that's all I can think about is like Archer just like womp, womp, womp. They do the sound effect for the tinnitus and everything. So shout out Archer. We see Loach and he's frustrated about how things went last time. So he's got a new plan. He's got Fuchs in a hotel room and Loach has it wired for video and sound. Fuchs just needs to get Barry to go there and he needs to get him talking. Fuchs gets a call from Barry asking about a speech from a different movie. Apparently, Braveheart is like super popular. At Loach's urging, Fuchs invites Barry to his hotel to talk about it, and Barry happily accepts. It seems like I wasn't quite sure at first. Like in the last episode when we saw him at the Lululemon, like kind of having a moment, I don't know, man. Is he just doing this to make sure that he gets him, or does he believe it? And you get the idea here, like especially when Barry thanks him at the end of the call. I think that Fuchs. He's really kind of like gone back on Team Barry here, right? Like even if I'm not that Fuchs would go to jail for him, but at least he doesn't want to like burn Barry down if he doesn't have to.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like, hey, I'm having regrets. I can't do this to my guy. I mean, this is for all intents. He's basically like a second father to him. I mean, it's a messed up relationship, but you get the feeling like, oh shit, maybe he does care a little bit about Barry, which is cool. It's cool to see.
And I don't want to talk about it too much right here, but Loach's handwriting, dude, I have to say, is a person who does not have the greatest handwriting. That's not language. That's if your 2-year-old draws it, you're like, all right, nice progress.
It was really bad. I mean, the first thing was like 2 or 3 words, and it was like 5 letters that weren't even letters, but were like resembled figures that could be letters in like an alien language. It was very bizarre. It was hilarious to me. I mean, absolutely died when he's like, where's my address? Hang on, I'm finding it. And he writes it. He shows him. Fuchs is just like, he knows he can't use it. He's got to, and then he's reading off the thing from the brochure in the hotel. And as you don't see him, he's reading it. You see Loach being like 107, like he's mouthing it, like, come on, how could you not read it? It's right here, dude. Great piece of work here. I thought this was way funnier than it should have been, but it was a really funny scene,
and definitely kind of ironic too, because Fuchs has the line where he tells Loach,
"You remember, he's a pro, right? I trained him. You think he's gonna, let himself walk into some kind of situation where he's gonna blurt everything out?"
That is literally exactly what Barry does. And at the end, we'll talk about the end, but Barry somehow like scurries up the side of the fucking building like Spider-Man. And then he goes in the room and he's never mentioned, like, I don't even know that Fuchs knows who Janice Moss is, right? And Barry just blurts it out. So I kind of like it when they do foreshadowing like that. So I thought that was a pretty good one. Because it's one of those things when someone says something like that and they're like, never will this ever happen. Of course it's going to happen.
How the hell did he scale up that wall, though? I mean, that was, I don't know.
We'll get to that when we get to that. I have thoughts on the Spider-Man of it all. But, speaking of a dude who never thought he'd see it happen, Gene arrives home and finds his son Leo waiting for him with strawberries. Against the advice of his wife and his therapist, Leo asks Gene if he'd like to grab a meal sometime. Gene accepts, and he asks Leo what made him change his mind, and Leo replies that he made an effort. And Gene, for the record, also attempts to airdrop Leo his contact information and everything. Gene not so good at the airdropping, and me either. So at least it was only a shirtless selfie and not something a couple more pictures down or something like that on the timeline.
And again, it's just a little things, right? But it's like, for one, this was a feel good because you like to see kind of this relationship happen with Leo and Gene, so that felt good. And I like when Gene asked him, what made you change your mind? And he said, you tried. And that's really, as a parent, that's all you can do. The little things with this where you hear the alert on Leo's phone after he sends it. And then it's like, he comes back, he's like, hey, Dad? And you think maybe he's going to be like, I love you or something, and it's that. And then and again, shout out to Gene's wardrobe. Okay. Gene's outfits, again, dressing with Gene. We got to think of a good way to a good.
Gene's gear is the word you were looking for. Gene's gear, the double G.
Gene's gear. There it is. We already had it. It's Gene's gear. I knew we did. So amazing as usual. But his reasoning here for that was his excuse was pretty good too.
And one super minor thing in Gene asks Leo, and he's like, you want tea? You want whiskey? And then it's kind of a throwaway line, but he says, well, you're still your mother's son. I'm guessing is why he offered whiskey like that. So, apparently Leo might have had like 0 good parents. So that might explain a lot. Back at the theater, Barry's watching Sally rehearse her scene, and he notices Sam watching her for the projection booth. He leaves, and Barry pursues him into the parking lot. Sam is upset that Sally's scene is about him, and he seems quite a bit different than he did when we saw him at dinner earlier. He leaves, but not before insulting Sally and Barry. Sally is still up on stage rehearsing, and Sam starts blowing up her phone. Sally tries to ignore it, but finally gives up and answers. Sam asks her to stop by his hotel. His schedule changed, and he's leaving tomorrow, and he's got something that he wants to give her. And Jamie G, I bet you Sam does have something he wants to give her.
Oh, I'm sure he does. And again, it's just, you kind of get the sense like this guy, he's that
dude. He's like that dude from high school, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Like we all kind of knew that dude. Like he's that dude.
He's just creepy. And, you're kind of like, Sally wants to do the right thing, but also for some strange reason, and this was kind of a good example, he still has some sort of hold over her.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could argue she wanted closure or something like that, but I definitely got like a horror movie feel when the phone keeps ringing and she doesn't mute it. Like she could have just muted it. Like she didn't mute it like deliberately. And I'm like, no, Sally, don't answer the phone. And then she answers the phone. I'm like, well, at least she's not going to go to his hotel. And I'm like, oh no, she's going to go to his hotel, isn't she? Like, Sally, what are you doing, dude? And really, I think the bigger surprise was that Barry just did not just throttle Sam in the parking lot, right? Like that's what I was expecting, kind of, especially when he starts insulting Sally and everything. I was just like, you can see haters' eyes going. I was just like, oh boy, he's gonna kill this dude, isn't he?
But what Sam says to him on his way out, oh man, yeah, that was, nobody wants to hear that ever. Them fighting words.
Yeah, and even Sam like trying to play it off like, oh, I have a family, this could fuck up my life. She's lucky I don't get a lawyer. Like that's the idea where you're all right, this dude did just come here for this reason. Like he was kind of, sugarcoating it before or whatever, but like he knew that she was doing a show that mentioned him and he doesn't want her to do it. And I think that's really the whole point. And you know what? Maybe Barry didn't handle it that great because the next time we see him, he's storming back into his apartment, getting a gun, storms back out while cocking the gun. Nick and Jermaine are just playing video games. They don't even see. Apparently, no one ever sees anything. That living room is like Las Vegas. No one sees or remembers what happened there. Never happened. Sally has actually agreed to meet Sam in the coffee shop of the hotel lobby, but it's closed. So she calls Sam and he tells her, just come up to my room. I just want to give you something real quick. I bet he does. We see Barry arrive in a parking garage and he checks the clip in his gun before exiting the car. Sally goes into Sam's room and he seems to do a nice thing. He gives her a program for a play she did during her sophomore year of high school. He apologizes to Sally for showing up in LA unexpected, and he starts telling Sally about his sick father, and we see Barry enter the lobby. Sally tells Sam that she'll be respectful of him when she does her play, and then Sam pushes her not to do it. She offers to change his name, but she's still doing the play. Barry's about to enter the room and kill Sam when he sees Sally standing there. He quickly ducks back into the hallway, and Sally leaves without seeing him. Barry hears Sam hurl insults at Sally as she heads to the elevator.
I thought that the kind of the showing the timeline of Sally and then showing kind of Barry, I like kind of the build up here. I thought it worked really well, and you're just kind of waiting for something to happen. I thought that was pretty cool. The way the story kind of was going with both their characters, kind of around Sam, right? Sam nails this as an abusive piece of shit to the 10th degree. I mean, he nails it, right? When he slams that wall and he finally, he gets her to feel bad for him, plays the nice guy, and then he hits her with it when she still doesn't give him what he wants. That's when he loses it, right? And shows his true colors. So look, man, anybody who's ever been in an abusive relationship, that's what they do.
100%. Again, I think you're pointing out excellent editing here with the cross-cutting between the two scenes. Just really well done. Very, very tense. Especially with the idea of Barry's going to arrive. And you didn't, you had to assume when you see him go in the hotel lobby, that's where he's going. Still not sure how we knew where his room was, but we'll just kind of overlook that one or whatever. Maybe he figured that out earlier or something like that. I do want to point out, though, how the fuck do Nick and Jermaine have VR headsets? Wasn't just like the last episode, they couldn't even give Barry like $5 for groceries, but now they got VR headsets and the whole nine.
Yes.
And we hear Nick complaining that the game sucks, and Jermaine's like, no, you just suck. I think point to Jermaine here. I think Nick just sucks. I'm sure they went to all that to buy all that gear. I'm pretty sure that it's Nick's fault.
Yeah, it's always Nick's fault. Just default to that.
It's always Nick's fault, and everyone is always the hero of their own story. Back in his car, Barry lets out some pent-up frustration and makes a call. Meanwhile, Fuchs and Loach are still waiting for Barry at Fuchs's hotel. Loach yells at Fuchs and goes into the other room, and Fuchs notices his phone vibrating in his pocket. He ducks into the bathroom and answers a call from Barry. Barry needs to talk, but Fuchs tells him never call him again, and he's going to block his number. Barry doesn't know what to do next, so he makes another call. We're not sure to who. I mean, Fuchs doing the right thing, right?
This was kind of the culmination here of what we've been sniffing around with Fuchsy since episode 3. Does he really want to do this to Barry? And the answer here was definitively no, he doesn't. And you would hope that kind of they've been through enough shit together where if like that was like code for like, hey, someone's listening in or something. But obviously we learned that didn't happen.
I mean, considering they had all those burner phones with different IDs and everything, you would think they would have a simple code word. So again, probably a little bit of an oversight there. And what do you think? Do you think this was an oversight by Loach, letting Fuchs kind of have his phone in his pocket on vibrate, not having it like all hooked up and visible? Or do you think, he just figured Fuchs didn't have the balls to double cross him?
I think he probably just thought he didn't have the balls to double cross him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he seemed to like, Fuchs not a big fan of jail. And to be honest with you, I can relate to that. Also, even in Monopoly, I don't like jail, dude. Although you can collect rent while in jail in Monopoly, so late in the game, it's actually beneficial to get in jail in Monopoly. Just FYI.
Yes.
You're playing hardcore. It's actually good to go to jail at the end of the game. Monopoly is a game of very fucked up values, just like Barry. It turns out Barry called Gene, and he's now at Gene's house. Barry tries to talk with Gene about dealing with his anger, but Gene's a bit angry with Barry himself. Gene is mad because Barry can't pick a horse. First, he went away from the sheep fucker, and then away from the Albert story. Gene wants to know what actually happened in the Albert story. Gene thinks that Barry both wants and needs to tell it. Barry is worried that Gene will think of him differently after, but Gene promises that he'll look at him the same way. Barry picks up the story where we left it kind of when Albert was shot in the face. Barry thinks he sees the guy who shot Albert go through a door, and he bursts in and kills him. But it was just an innocent man. Barry is then shipped to a hospital in Germany, and Fuchs pulled some strings to get him discharged. After that, he didn't feel like he deserved a good life. Gene is shocked by Barry's story, and his advice is to never tell anybody else that story ever again. He tells Barry about his son Leo and how terrible he was to him. Because of this, Gene desperately hopes that people like him and Barry can change, because if not, they're in deep trouble. Gene thinks Barry has started the process of healing by coming here to talk about it instead of using violence. Gene promises that they're going to be okay, and Barry gives him a hug. Kind of sweet for a scene that depicted not quite cold-blooded murder, but hot-blooded murder.
Yeah, I mean, it did, right? And dude, again, I know we talk about it a lot, but shout out to Gene's gear. His robe game is on point, and it's you gotta love this because they have this very kind of like special moment, the hug, the tears. Barry opens up, Gene opens up. It's a big moment, and then Gene's like,
Now I bill my private classes through another loan out. So I'm just going to go and get that ledger.
just classic Gene here, dude.
Yes, I mean, down to the outfit and the nickel and dime. I mean, Escalades don't pay for themselves, man. Not
True.
cheap in my guesses, because this is Gene. It's probably a lease, so you know he's got to he's probably paying for mileage. Who knows? The gas isn't cheap in that one. And shout out Barry here when he asked,
Do you think I'm a bad person, Mr. Cousineau?
I think you are deeply human. You did a terrible thing. But do I think that defines you? No. That's why I don't think you should tell this story in front of the class. Also, they will shit themselves.
They're children.
yeah, the tack out of that of the shitting themselves and the children just made it all worthwhile. And again, here we see what Fuchs meant by dealing with it. In the previous episode, we weren't quite sure, was he helping Barry emotionally? No, he was helping Barry not get arrested on murder charges. Back at his hotel, we see Fuchs is trying to make an escape via the third floor balcony of his room. He's about halfway towards creeping on a ledge to the next balcony when Barry shows up. Barry has something to tell Fuchs, and he climbs up like Spider-Man and goes right into Fuchs's room. Fuchs drops the suitcase and manages to get back in himself. Barry tells him that he told Gene the story about Albert, and Gene accepted him. Barry starts talking about letting go of everything from the war and their work together. Fuchs tries to get Barry to shut up, but he keeps going and mentions killing Janice Moss. Loach appears behind Barry with a gun pointed at him. Loach asks Fuchs to give them a moment. Fuchs apologizes to Barry and leaves. Loach then tells Barry that the tape's off, it's just the two of them. And in a stunning conclusion, Loach shows Barry a picture of the guy who's fucking his wife. If Barry kills him, this all goes away.
What?
What? I mean, okay. This was a wild scene. I just shout out to Fuchs. He's more nimble than you think, dude. He's on that ledge, one hand holding a suitcase. That's not easy to do, man.
Dude, amazing job that they bring. Like, we've been hearing about Loach's ex-wife or his wife and the whole thing. Kind of amazing that they bring it back this way, right? Because you kind of always wondered why Loach was so intent. Like, it seemed like he liked Janice, but I mean, Janice was also the one running a pool about him breaking up with his wife. So it always struck me as a little bit odd that he was this determined to avenge her. And this makes more sense, I think.
I just love kind of the contrast here, right? I mean, you get Barry being so happy and excited and accepted for the first time ever, and it's like this huge weight's been gone, and then boom, now he's going to jail forever. Or is he? Right? Like that was a cool play here, dude. Very cool play.
I have to say, when in the final scene when Loach is getting ready to talk to him, he's like looking away. He's not even looking at gun. Barry definitely could have just taken Loach out right there. Very easy, multiple times. He's not handcuffed. He's just Loach is like looking away. The gun's not even pointed at Barry. From what we've seen of Barry, he totally could have handled that. But it's all worth it because during that whole point, like, you can't quite figure out what Loach is doing. He's kind of talking to himself, and you think he's talking about Barry, like he planned this all out. He did it. Like, now you're here. You got it. Like, and then really, it's like him talking about this was his master plan the whole time. They did a good job of not giving away the game until the very last second when they kind of yanked the wife out for the rug out from under you about his ex-wife and everything. You know, again, probably maybe my favorite title of a Barry episode because it ends perfectly on the what. Again, great editing and just this, I think, definitely one of the best edited episodes of Barry, if nothing else. And this is where we mentioned that Barry climbed the fucking wall like Spider-Man. That was 3 stories. There was no visible way up, and he's just there. I mean, Fuchs turns away, he goes like a foot. Barry's just there.
He's there. How, dude? That was.
My guess is they just wanted it to happen, and they were just like, this needs to happen, and we don't want to waste 2 minutes with Barry coming up with a way to actually get up there. Or they didn't want to pay someone to like do all that parkour shit or whatever. I don't even know.
Well, probably column A, column B, right? I mean, I'm sure it's both little bit non-believable. And you could kind of, if you really wanted to nitpick Barry, you can kind of say that's kind of a runner here. A lot of times there's shit that's like totally unbelievable, but you kind of look the other way just because of how awesome everything else is.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Maybe he is Spider-Man. Who knows? Or he's Man Spider.
That's the end of our recap. But before we go handing out our hardware and giving out awards and celebrating everybody, let's see what other people thought about this episode. Over on IMDb, this episode titled "What?" has a rating of 9.1. That's rare air. That makes it the sixth highest rated episode of Barry out of 24 total episodes to date. There's some sort of math in there, but that means it's pretty damn good. Mills, what do you think, man? Does that sound like the sixth best episode? You think that's about right?
That might be a touch.
Did I get
higher.
that math right?
It makes it, top quartile. 6 goes into 24 4 times. Got to remember them old arithmetic tables, and arithmetic means math if no one uses that word anymore. 6 best is probably a little bit rich for me. I think this is slightly better than the previous episode, but I was more in that, like, I think 8.3, 8.4 range on that one. So I would put this more between the 9.1 in there. So in that top half, but not probably the top quartile, the top 25%. How about yourself, man? Top 6, top quartile?
I'm putting it in definitely top 10. I think it could maybe squeeze its way into top 8, top 7. So I'm close, but maybe not quite as high as that.
Normally we like to give alternate titles for the episode. I think given the way they set this one up, it might be the best joint ever, the best title of Barry as far as an episode title goes, but it's a bit we do. So Jamie G, just give me one. You got anything that could compete with what? Or are they just going to call it the Little John episode?
Little John episode. I got her when she was tight. I mean, that would be one. It is HBO. They can do stuff like that.
You could go with choke on this. That maybe goes both ways with it.
Choke on this would be a good one too. I think they finally got one right here, though.
Yeah, I think they did get one right here. I mean, I think You're Deeply Human is decent. Never Tell That Story Again is probably okay. And just the one I like, it's got a little alliteration to it, like some kind of Braveheart bullshit.
That would be intriguing. I gotta say, that would be intriguing.
If you saw, that's the whole point of the kind of like the episode titles should both mean something, and I think make somebody who didn't really like, they would just look at it and be intrigued a little bit.
It is now time to hand out awards for this episode. We'll start by each choosing our favorite quote or dialogue exchange from the episode. I'm up first here. Mills, I've got to go. There was a bunch of funny stuff, but believe it or not, dude, this was my funniest moment of the entire episode. And that was just Gene just saying,
"Your story is that your father was abducted and replaced by aliens?"
That's what happened.
I'm having a little trouble with that.
You're having a little trouble with that. What do you think? I've had that trouble my entire life dealing with that, right?
Really?
There's a lot going on while this is happening, so it's kind of not like the main thing, but dude, it's so funny, man. This one broke me, and so I have to give it up for that exchange.
I think that's a very good one. I try to be like, hey, we got to keep moving. We can't give an honorable mention, but dude, no one ever mentions Deep Blue Sea. So shout out Eric's recommendation of Samuel L. Jackson's speech from Deep Blue Sea. But I have to go with Gene's reaction to hearing the conclusion of the Albert story when he says,
"Holy shit. Fuck. Who else did you tell this story to?"
In class, no one.
Good. So here's my advice. You never tell that story again as long as you live, because basically, you killed somebody, and you got away with it.
Gene, for once, sums it all up here and really is very aware of what's going on in that story. And when he breaks it down that way, yeah, Barry probably the only thing that might have been better if Gene was like, now I understand why you didn't tell that story in the first place, and you were right. Like after pushing him to open it up, he's like, nope, you were right the whole time. My bad.
Do that.
Up next is our favorite moment or scene from What? And it's my turn to go first. Favorite scene that I just mentioned it, Barry opening up to Gene, but favorite moment, Loach's handwriting. It has to be in just his perplexed look, like, how does nobody do that? And this is coming from a dude. I've been to go up on a doctor's prescription to the pharmacist before and had to sit there while the pharmacist calls the doctor to figure out what the fuck the prescription says. And then they have to wait till someone gets into the files and it's like, oh no, they haven't written it down. No one has transcribed it yet. And the one person who can read his handwriting isn't here.
That was an incredible moment. I hate to do this because it's so kind of chalky, but I got to go with that end moment with Loach and Barry, dude. I just, when it all came together.
You get rid of him, all of this goes away. What?
It was incredible. And, the whole time you're kind of thinking he's revenging, getting his revenge and avenging Janice, but really he just wants to get even and kill the guy who's banging his ex-wife or banging his wife, not even an ex yet. So that was great. Timed out with the what? Yeah, man, I gotta put it there.
I agree, but now I'm just starting to think, I'm like, man, where did Loach get the money for all this equipment?
That brings inquiring minds need to know. That brings us to our Greek freak of assassins. This is our MVP of the episode. Man, I guess it's my time to go first here. I'm giving it up for Loach, dude. Loach got what he has been working so hard for. He's been grinding out of the Quinceañera shop. He got it, and now he's in a position of power, man. He gets to take out, what's his name, Ronnie.
All right, let's see if I can bring this all around here. So I like the Deep Blue Sea, and that starred LL Cool J. In Il Bomb, LL Cool J has a line pierce the nipples, throw the LL charms on him. And I'm going to throw the LL charms on him because I'm also going to go Loach. So we got the double L. Ladies love Loach. That would be the triple L. But I mean, this is as good as it gets for Loach, right? He came up with a sneaky master plan and it worked. Somehow, against all odds, maybe he kind of cousin Gregged himself into it and he failed upwards. But the plan worked, and this has to be, given what we've seen of Loach, this might be the highlight of his life so far. So if this is the one day that the sun shined on the dog's ass, you have to acknowledge it at least.
Happy for you, Lochi.
And we have to acknowledge that we're no Roddy T's, we're no Rotten Tomatoes, but we still do our best to give grades to episodes of Barry, and it's time for us to give a grade to What?
Because I'm the Fonz, huh? Hey.
In honor of Henry Winkler, Gene Cousineau himself, we grade each episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey! I'm up first here. Again, I think it was more in line with the last episode, but I think it was a little bit better. Again, maybe one of the best edited episodes of Barry. Great ending to it. Love the twist. So I think 8.5 A's. Jamie G, hit the jukebox.
Yes, sir. Well, anytime I get to be the Fonz, even if it's just for a split second, it makes me happy. And I'm happy to give this one. I'm a little bit higher than you. I'm going 8.8 A's.
Nice. He gives it enough A's to power the DeLorean to go back to the future. And we're about to go back to the future 2 style because we're going to go into the future, into the spoiler section. So if you do not want to be spoiled on anything from future episodes, any news about Barry, anything like that, this is your time to bail out. Thanks again for tuning into the Barry podcast. Please remember to do the rate, follow, subscribe thing, and check back soon for our episode covering the 5th episode of season 2, Ronnie Lily. For everybody else, this is our spoiler discussion for What? Glad to see the Escalade. Very upset that there's no Lil Jon cameo in this episode.
Extremely upset. How great would it have been for Gene to be bumping Lil Jon as he pulls up, and that would have been almost like, and it would have been a little bit of foreshadowing and stuff, and maybe people would have thought, okay, well that's why it's called What. Either way, I think they missed one there.
I would love if Gene's Escalade had like rims and like a banging system. He's got like 4 18s in there or something absolutely stupid, and it's just like they never say why. And he listens to like 70s classic rock on it or something crazy.
Like he just listens to like
he's
John
just playing
Denver.
like Tom Sawyer all the time for the drums and shit, like to hit on the system. I don't know. I think that would be fun just if Gene, like he wears all this weird gear and shit, but then he's got like a pimped out Escalade and no one ever comments on it. I think that would have been hysterical. And I think probably the most I would say relevant, I wouldn't, they're callbacks now, but flashes of what we see is basically in the relationship between Sally and Sam, and then how it reflects to Sally and Barry's relationship in season 3. Like we see here in the hotel, Sam hits the wall. That's exactly the same way. I think it's almost shot identically to the way Barry does that early in season 3. In here, Sally talks about the cycle of violence repeating itself, which is kind of what it does. She didn't know it at the time. She's already dating a hitman, but it does kind of repeat itself, which leads her going back to the beginning of Joplin. And then, maybe that's where she will finally break the cycle. But
yeah. Good point, man. I forgot about that with Barry hitting the wall. You're right. It looks exactly the same. You swap
they
out
keep
Sam for
teasing it
Barry.
here, like she's never going to be with a violent person again. And Barry doesn't want to be violent, especially to her. Like he's so hesitant to choke her here. I mean, that's Barry though, right? I mean, that's the kind of most human part of it. I think why people can relate to him because, he's got, everyone has a line until you don't. He thinks he's going to do this. And like in that moment, he's ready to just kill Sam, right? He didn't want to do any violence or whatever. And he just decides like, no plan. Like this is a dude, he usually scouts shit out, gets yelled at by Fuchs for spending 3 days on a target. He gets a gun. He goes up in that hotel room. Again, not sure how he found out what room it was or why the door was unlocked still, but he's right there and he has no plan, no silencer. He is just going to cap dude in the head and figure it out later. And we see some of that, I think, is time go on even at the beginning of like season 3, like he just stops giving a fuck and he just gets sloppier and sloppier kind of because maybe that is the Fuchs part of it, or just maybe it's just him, I don't know if wanting to get caught on some level, but again, maybe thinking that he doesn't deserve anything nice, so fuck it.
I think that is a wrap on what? Mills, anything else here?
This is way better than the last episode, or is that really mouthful of a math title? I could do the Little John titles all day. I think it would have been fun if the 3 episodes in a row were like, what, yeah, and okay. I think that would have been absolutely spectacular. But what's also spectacular is the episode that's up next. That's episode 5 of season 2, titled Ronnie Lily. This is the absolute favorite episode of Barry for a lot of the Barry fans. I believe it's the highest rated episode on IMDb, if not the highest. It's in the top 2. So yeah, really excited to watch this one again.
Yeah. Dude, me too. And we are glad that you checked out the Barry podcast and our coverage of what? Okay. For real, though. Thanks again for checking us out. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and we hope that we added something to your overall Barry experience, whether you're doing a rewatch like us or you're checking Barry for the first time. Please, please, please do yourself a favor. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, do it, do all of it. Go ahead and take whatever Mills said. He's the math guy. I think 7 seconds on this one. Anything else, buddy? Or are we good to go?
What? Yeah. Okay. You just have to go to @Barry Podcast to find us on social media. Search for Barry Podcast wherever you get your pods to find us. Search for us on YouTube @Barry Podcast, or find us at JoeBlowFootballShow.com. And yeah, we are the Barry Podcast. I am Magnum Mills. He is Jamie G. We are definitely the co-presidents of the Mitch Fan Club, and we like to go out by bringing it in. Yeah! What?
Okay.